And welcome to episode 439 of Geektown Radio. I'm your host, Dave, and with me this week is Matt. How are you doing?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It should have been a grey week this week, but it is half term, and apparently he's in New York, so... Yeah,
I had a conversation with him yesterday, and I was like, oh, right, okay.
Although, just to dampen that slightly, I think it's a school trip, so he's in New York wrangling school children.
Oh, okay.
So, good on one side, not so good on the other. But there you go. So, it's been a couple of weeks since you've been on. What have you been up to?
I started a new show at the weekend. I thought I would get stuck into Sweetpea, which is the Panel show about basically her getting frustrated at the world for very understandable reasons. Mm-hmm. And she decides to go on a particular journey, I guess, if we call it that. So I'm 4 episodes into that. There's 6 of them in total. I will probably do a season review once I finish that. So I'm looking forward to giving that some praise, but I can also do that here. I thought that the actual pilot episode was probably one of the best I've seen in a long time, probably next to Yellow Jackets, which I watched the whole thing of.
Yes, which she's also in.
Recently.
Yes.
Yeah, both of them have got, now in the pilot. So I guess that's a good way to get your pilot goes, is to have her in it. So, but no, very impressed, particularly with the pilot. I liked how that kind of laid the groundwork for things to come. And as I've kind of gotten, well, not older, but, grown up, or however you want to describe that,
yes,
I've become kind of interested in like morality and sort of black and white stuff or grey area things. Mm-hmm. I know we talked a million times about like Walter White. I'm sure other people have as well, of course, about his whole descent into whatever he becomes and all that. But those things can come with very interesting kind of journeys. And I suppose when you've got a character that you're trying to root for, I won't compare Walter White and this character because they go on kind of like different journeys in context and stuff. But when a show wants you to kind of root for the main character and then they do something that you could say is morally questionable, but then you see from their perspective of the literal breakdown of the character, what happens to them and all those kind of things. So I thought the pilot did an excellent job of doing that. So it's interesting sometimes when, like, I suppose from lots of different characters, like, okay, they've done something really bad. You've seen in context the reasons why and how they've done it. And the question being posed to you as the audience member of like, okay, is what they've done good or bad? Like, are you standing with or against them? And sometimes it's not always just as simple as that. That being said, the amount of things that happened to this woman in the pilot episode,
I know.
Oh my God. I think if the average person went through even like half of that, we'd probably go a bit mad. So understandable, but again, does some questionable things. And then it just kind of carries on from there. And really, really excellent so far. I've really quite enjoyed that. I've liked Ella Purnell sort of, I don't want to call it rise to fame because she's been famous for a bit of time.
For a while,
her recent kind of, Yellow Jackets and this and Fallout and everything else. So it's been really good so far. You've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, I have only watched the pilot so far. I've got to go back and other things got in the way and I haven't managed to get back to it, but I really enjoyed the pilot. I thought it was, like I say, it's a great way of laying the groundwork for a character which is doing morally questionable stuff, but you get the context in which she's doing it, not necessarily supporting her in it, but you can see why she's got to that point. You mentioned Breaking Bad. Dexter would be another one that you know, where you're rooting for a serial killer. It's that sort of...
He's a serial killer that kills bad people, right?
Yeah. So it's setting it up and crafting it so you're still rooting for the character even though they're doing bad things. And I think you're right. That opening episode does a really good job of laying that out. I do want to go and watch the rest of it because it is all up on Sky right now, but I just haven't had time to go back and watch the rest of it and catch up on everything else, right?
Well, I watched 4 episodes pretty much, but with some breaks and stuff back to back yesterday, and each episode just flowed right into the next one, and it was just, carried its momentum really well. The pacing was really good. Nice sort of quick 42-minute episodes. In fact, when I'd pause it to go and do other things or whatever, there'd already be like 25 minutes gone. I was like, wow, okay, I didn't, it didn't feel like 25 minutes had gone by already. So the pacing and stuff really, really good. Who is it that, because it's Sky over here, who is it that's, is it Stars? I think it is.
Stars, yeah.
Interesting. Because if you just showed either the trailer or an episode to somebody, I don't know if I'd completely feel this way, but in terms of like camera work and how it looks and the production quality, you could arguably say this is like HBO Apple level sort of production. It sort of feels like a show. It feels like a show that could be on one of those two platforms, just from like how it's put together. So I thoroughly enjoyed that so far. And then I checked out the wonderful Heartstopper. Some episodes in. I've got a few left to go through. That's completely on the other scale of Sweetpea, where you've got these teenagers just kind of trying to live their lives. They've got problems they've come up against. Obviously, it's a very LGBTQ focused centered show. This is the 3rd season, and it just naturally carried on from where it was before. Very easy to kind of just sit down, settle into that, be emotionally, affected by it and things like that. Not just because of my own background with the subject, but it's just a very well emotionally done show. One thing I kind of picked up on with the quality of this season, it was probably there before, but I guess noticed it a bit more. The show is very, very, very good at doing what you'd call like intimate conversations of just two people that they have a situation that's happened. And because a lot of these characters are trying to work through not necessarily problems, but like situations or issues or things like that. And because a lot of the subjects that do come up, particularly with the 3rd season, I won't spoil anything, but particularly with what comes up there, it's interesting that because of the weight of some of these subjects, and these are kind of just everyday people, just either work or education, they're trying to just kind of get on with their lives. And these like really serious, sometimes serious subjects come up, and they all know that, okay, none of us can kind of help each other professionally, and that sort of thing does come up later for something particular. We're all trying to just be there for each other, and there's lots of nice hugging scenes and things where characters are trying to console each other. So maybe it's just gotten even better at doing that sort of thing. Maybe that's why I've noticed it more. I don't know. But it was also just something kind of struck me about a few of the scenes, because they go on this little, I think they have their summer holidays or something, and it's so interesting coming away from, let's say, online discussions, if we want to call them that, about this subject, and how much immense difficulty people in the real world have with this sort of subject and thing. I do mean in a sort of like very hateful way. And you got this group of, I think it's like 6 or 7 friends or something, and they just so easily get on with each other and just accept each other for like what they are and all those sorts of, and it was just nice to just watch these characters just be who they are and just get on with each other. It was just a nice thing to sit down and watch. So that was good. So yeah, really, really enjoyed both of those basically. So I'll be doing reviews for both of those soon once Gray is back from New York, I suppose. We're talking about that because I've really enjoyed doing, I think we did seasons 1 and 2 together. I really enjoyed those conversations with him. So it's good stuff that I've been watching. How about yourself, David?
Well, I mean, have you been doing any gaming recently?
I did finish a game called Still Wakes the Deep, and in my review I said that it was just forgettable. So
fair enough. I've been playing around with a game called Memoriapolis, I think the name is. It's a city builder, obviously, because that's mainly one of the things I play. But it's a really unique one. It's a kind of sort of a mix between your sort of SimCity and Civilization, in that you start in sort of ancient times and move through the centuries. But the way that it builds the city is you place certain buildings down and the residents sort of pop up automatically around the buildings that you build. So you're not laying out like individual houses for everybody. It's slightly more sort of pulled out from that. But it starts out that you're constructing a city. The whole game sort of spans over 2,500 years. So you're starting off constructing this city in antiquity, and then it goes through to the Age of Enlightenment is the idea. And what you're doing is you're placing down sort of key construction buildings. So you're placing down buildings like your stone pits and woodcutters and that sort of thing to get resources. But then you're also placing down buildings like libraries and pottery workshops and that sort of thing. And based on what building you put down, the community that grows up around that building are focused on one particular particular things. So if you put down a fort, a lot of the population that spawn around that fort are going to be a military faction, whereas if you place down a pottery building, the people that are around that are going to be a creative faction. And there are internal struggles in your city between those different factions about sort of who gets to set the rules and that sort of thing. It's a really interesting and different take on a city builder, and not one that I've seen before. And it's quite nice as you go through the ages, because it doesn't automatically suddenly upgrade what you've already built when you move into a next stage. It doesn't suddenly change all the buildings over to being the newer buildings, which is what usually happens. You know, you change age and suddenly all the buildings change into being sort of, you know, go from being shacks to being stone houses or whatever. With this, your initial city stays there, but then you build another town centre. So you start off in the sort of ancient times, and then you build another town centre, which is sort of more medieval times. So you end up with this really interesting looking city that has sort of an older town and then a slightly newer looking town. And as you grow, you end up with a sort of new city centre with a slightly different architecture, but it's an expansion of the whole city. So the old buildings are still there, but some of the buildings in that area fall out of use or can be upgraded into being used for something else. So it's a really interesting change to your standard city builder. It's in early access at the moment, and it is still a little bit buggy. I've only got so far in it before it completely crashes out on me. But like I say, it is in early access. So I'm waiting for sort of some updates and stuff to come out for it. But it's about 20 quid on Steam at the moment. And it is well worth picking up. And very, very interesting. If you like city builders, it's a very different sort of game and one worth going to look at, I would say. In terms of the TV, though, Devil's Hour returned for its second season, which I actually saw the first couple of episodes of this a while ago because they sent me some preview copies. Devil's Hour is the show with Peter Capaldi and Jessica Raine as the two leads in it. Jessica plays somebody who is a social worker, and she wakes up at exactly 3:33 every morning and has these sort of terrifying visions. And she has an 8-year-old son who is very withdrawn and emotionless. And she crosses paths with Peter Capaldi's character, who's a guy called Gideon, who appears to be a sort of mysterious, almost when you first meet him, like a Hannibal Lecter-y type of character, this mysterious criminal who appears to be brutally killing people for reasons they can't quite understand. And it turns out the whole thing is connected, and the reasons that she's waking up is connected to what Gideon is actually doing, and Gideon might not be as bad a person as he first appears on the surface. It feels very much like a horror series, but isn't. It's a sci-fi, and it's brilliantly written by Tom Moran. It's beautifully acted by Jessica Raine and Peter Capaldi. Season 2 pretty much picks up where season 1 ends. I don't want to go into sort of too many details in terms of what actually happens for those of you that haven't seen it. But I would say if you like those slightly sort of off-kilter narratives, which I know is very much your sort of thing. Things like Servant, which I know is a full-blown horror thing, but those sort of things which are like Yellow Jackets or Servant, where there is something going on, but you're not entirely sure what. And it feels like there's a horror edge to it. As I say, with this, I mean, it is sort of listed in some places as being a supernatural drama, and it's not. It's actually a sci-fi. But I think you'd really like this. I think this is one that would be worth you going to check out. But I thoroughly enjoyed the first season. I think it's one of the best things that Prime produce. And second season is out now, very much a continuation of the first, and jumbles around the characters a little bit at the start of the second season, which makes for an interesting idea as well. You've not checked this yet, have you?
No. There's a fine line with me with that kind of thing. I do prefer not to be necessarily told this thing is or isn't happening, but more of a kind of, like, as early on in, let's say, Servant and in Yellow Jackets, you get the sense that, okay, something weird's happening, and it doesn't feel like it is you're being tricked or something. But there's certain other more psychological horror stuff, and I think Silent Hill does this quite a lot, but I haven't delved into that series yet, where you get not necessarily lied to as an audience member, but you get more convincingly told that, like, oh no, this weird thing is happening. Whereas in something more like Yellow Jackets, you can definitively kind of tell, like, okay, this thing is very weirdly out of place, and you know that it's to do with like the supernatural stuff or whatever it is that's going on in the show, rather than, because there's even been a few things where someone will be hanging around with somebody in a film, and then you'll find out by the end of that film, like, oh, they were never there the whole time. So what is that? Yeah. And there's a few times where I've seen that work in good ways, but only a handful of times. So there's a fine line between you being able to tell as the audience member that, okay, you know that this is a trick, but the characters don't, which is how it works in Yellow Jackets, which is where they start to lose their mind a bit and stuff. And in Servant, it's done more as a narrative thing rather than a character thing, because it kind of shows you just, hey, the walls are crackling. You know, why do you think that's happening? But you can tell it clearly isn't real or isn't the actual thing that's happening, but there's supposed to be a narrative reason there for you to guess as to what's kind of going on. So yeah, there's a fine line there somewhere.
Yeah, I think this walks that line based on what you just said. I think this walks that line very, very, very well. I do think this is one you will probably quite enjoy. So I would say go and check out The Devil's Hour, because the second season is out now.
See, I remember when, I think it was Legion, when that got like a bit weird and wacky, and then I fell off of that at some point during season 2. And I remember, I think it was in season 3, you and a few other people said like, oh, it just got weird for the sake of being weird. I don't like that sort of thing. Where it's just, we're just going to show you like a bunch of random stuff for no reason.
Yeah. So Devil's Hour definitely doesn't do that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
cool.
It's not
that can
that.
get annoying and frustrating. Yeah.
No, totally. So yeah, Devil's Hour on Prime, definitely worth going to check that out if you've not seen that yet. Over on Disney Plus, Rivals started, which is an adaptation of the classic Jilly Cooper novel, which came out in 1988. And I mean, Jilly Cooper, if you don't know that author, was known for writing these sort of rather raunchy books based in the sort of British countryside, and they tended to involve horse riding and that sort of stuff, and you know, the sort of upper class kind of thing. This is an adaptation of Rivals, which is actually based around the world of independent television, but it is a group of people that are out in the countryside of the UK. And the cast is great for it. It kind of sets out its stall and what it is really from the opening seconds, which involves two people, for the younger members of the audience, which they say getting quite close in a bathroom toilet on Concorde, which sort of is great because it shows you kind of the tone of what a lot of the show is going to be, and also the opulence of the fact that it's people on Concorde, and the fact that it's Concorde in that it is sort of the 80s. That was the height of opulence, was flying around on this supersonic jet. So I think from the opening moment, it sort of sets all that out. But the basic story is about a guy called Lord Tony Baddingham, played by David Tennant, and he owns this independent television company called Corinium, and they're a sort of, I mean, it's pre-satellite, but they're sort of a big Sky type, that sort of independent television station, ITV, that sort of thing. And he runs this company. He's trying to poach a guy from the BBC called Declan O'Hara, played by Aidan Turner, who is an interviewer, but he's sort of getting hamstrung in his interviews by the BBC's rules and regulations. And he's sort of trying to expose politicians, but he's getting told, oh, no, you can't say that and that sort of thing. So he manages to poach him. And there is also Alex Hassel, who plays a character called Rupert Campbell Black, who is a former sports star who is now a politician and is a bit of a Lothario, and talking about trying to woo him onto the board, even though there is this rivalry going on, particularly between David Tennant's character and this character, who don't particularly like each other. It's such a well put together story. It's very entertaining. It is very much of the period. It's fun and it's funny. Not something you watch with children, I would definitely say, because there is an awful lot of naked flesh in there at various points, but it sort of follows the story, particularly of Aidan Turner's character, as they get recruited to this TV station, as he gets recruited to this TV station and moves there with his family. And they're the sort of way into introduction of this group of people that live in the, it's a fictional county called Rutshire, but it's supposed to be a sort of Cheshire-y, Suffolk, or, you know, that sort of posh outside a big city setup of big English country houses and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I'd be very interested to see how this is going down abroad, because it feels very, very British to me. I would say it's probably sort of almost Bridgerton-esque, but set in the 80s to a certain extent. But yeah, cast is great. Alex Hassel, say one of the characters, David Tennant, Aidan Turner, Victoria Smurfett is in there as well. Catherine Parkinson is in there. Danny Dyer pops up, although I didn't even recognise it was Danny Dyer when he first popped up either. Rufus Jones. Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of people. Emily Attack. There's a whole bunch of people in there that you probably would recognise as faces in that. It's very, very well done. And all the episodes are up on Disney Plus in the UK if you want to go and check that out. I think it's on Hulu in the US if you're over there. But that's called Rivals. So definitely worth looking that up. 911 also returned on Disney Plus as well for its opening episode, which is the infamous one we've been talking about for a few weeks, which has a bee tornado, or a Bee-nado, as they're referring to it in the opening episode. They actually managed to get away with it. I think I was highly skeptical about whether they were going to manage to pull that off, but the Bee-nado thing that is sort of the opening of it is due to the fact that there is a truck which has been carrying a bunch of very dangerous killer bees through the center of Los Angeles, and jackknifes on a bridge, and all the bees escape. And that's how you end up with this ridiculous amount of bees, which are then terrorizing the city. I think they managed to pull it off because it is such a silly premise at the opening of it. We've also got the opening of this with Bobby no longer being in charge of the fire station as well. So there is, if you remember the end of last season, he left. So there is another boss in charge who is not going down particularly well with them right now. Presumably that will be resolved in the next few episodes, I imagine, because I can't think they're going to keep that going forever. But yeah, good opening start, I thought, to that. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's one of the sillier sort of ideas for it, but I think they did it fairly well. Have you watched that yet?
I haven't seen the opening episode yet, no. For some reason, I was waiting for the previous season to continue, but I didn't realise it had finished with 10 episodes. So
yes,
I guess it's the start of the new season. But no, even I remember when you described that before, and I still kind of, I know you said that you thought it might be a bit silly, but they, not that they've gone sort of Sharknado-esque, but they have done some like big stuff before in the past. And I just never quite thought that it manages to do some really big things, but somehow keep it really grounded. And I think it's been excellent at doing that for its entire run. Granted, the whole bees ideas, it sounds sillier, but I still trust the show to be able to do that. So I'm curious to see what that kind of looks like. So
yeah, I mean, they've done flooding Los Angeles. They had that whole stunt with the pier getting washed away and all that sort of stuff. They did the upturned boat last season, which they managed to get away with as well. It was just because this was such a strange idea. I did wonder whether, they maybe slightly jumped the shark with this, but they seem to have managed to get away with it, I think. So, I thought it was a good, fun opening episode of 911. So that's back for season 8 on Disney+. Over on Netflix, The Lincoln Lawyer returned for its 3rd season. That has been fantastic. That's been the thing that sort of kept me off watching things like Sweetpea and catching up with that, because I've just been binging my way through The Lincoln Lawyer. I'm a couple of episodes from the end. This continues from where the 2nd season ended, with the death of one of the characters, and just don't want to sort of give too much away in case people haven't watched it, but the 2nd season ends with the death of a particular character, and the 3rd season is very much about them finding what happened and why she died and the killer from that. But yeah, I think they're doing a really solid job. It's a really good cast. It's a well-written story that keeps the tension throughout the whole run, or certainly has up until this point. There's quite a lot of action in the sort of like first lot of episodes, and then when you get to episode sort of 6 or 7, it becomes more of a straight courtroom drama, although there are action scenes in there as well. Pretty much the same core cast as it has been since the beginning. They've been utilising them very well. It's just a very, very well written and well acted drama. I mean, it started out as a network drama. It was originally pitched as a network drama, I think, to CBS, and they opted not to pick it up, and then Netflix picked it up. And you can still feel that sort of roots in it, but because it's on Netflix, it allows them to do a little bit more than you would be able to on a network. And I think they've handled it very, very well, that show. Have you watched any of those?
No. I remember, what was that? I went to watch Heartstopper that was on there, and they had the splash screen thing was for this. And I remember you'd mentioned it, and I thought, is that show that David watches? It turns out, yes. So.
Yes, it is. It is worth going to check that out, particularly if you like those sort of network procedurals, it is very much in that area, but has a little bit of an extra edge to it because of the fact that it's Netflix and they can get away with a little bit more. But it still has very much that sort of network vibe of sort of dramedy, but it leans, well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's funny as well as being drama, but the drama really shines through when it needs to. And, you know, the comedy just adds this nice sort of extra layer across the top of it. It is an extremely solid show, and hopefully they'll bring it back for more seasons. And I'm thoroughly enjoying the third season of that. As I say, I'm a couple of episodes on the end of it. So very much looking forward to finishing that show. There was one other little bit of gaming news that dropped. Unknown Worlds announced that Subnautica 2 is coming, which Subnautica was a game that I absolutely adored. Do you ever play that? I know you've heard me talk about it before.
I did play a little bit. I went for a little swim in the game, and then, that was about it. So.
Yeah. So the first game is based around the idea that you're on a ship, it crashes onto a planet, you start off in a life raft and have a replicator and a few basic tools in the life raft. And you have to go and mine things from the ocean. So it's an ocean planet. So you have to go and mine things from around the ocean and go and explore to build yourself a way of surviving and ultimately a way of getting off the planet. There is also a sort of storyline with a kind of alien conspiracy thing going on there as well. But I absolutely adored the first game. It was so wonderful. I played it all the way through early access, and then it was one of the few games that I could quite happily, whenever they did an update, just go back to the start and play through it again. You know, I must have restarted that game so many times. I really just loved it. It's called Subnautica 2. There has actually been a second Subnautica game, which was called Below Zero, which was set again on that one. It was set on another water planet, but it was rather more frozen. This one is, I think, more of a direct continuation to the original game. It appears to be the same character, although it is on a different planet. And it's also got multiplayer or optional multiplayer. I should make that very clear. It is optional multiplayer. They've been very specific about that. So much like things like Satisfactory, you can multiplayer if you want, but you don't have to, because I don't play that many multiplayer games. So there will be that option, so you can build with up to 4 friends, I think it said. But, I mean, essentially, it's going to be more Subnautica. New world, new biomes, deeper ocean, bigger map. There is a mystery on the planet that you are trying to uncover. You've also got the sort of same sort of crafting stuff. They've revamped how you build the bases and things. So they're hoping that will be slightly easier to manage. You can craft the submersibles and tools and all that sort of stuff. So there's going to be new versions of those coming up, new monsters, new life forms. I mean, I don't know exactly when it's coming out, but it will be 2025. They've said it will come into early access. So in terms of actually being released, you're probably a couple of years off that, yeah. But the early access release will be in 2025, and I'm very much looking forward to picking that up. I will be diving straight into that when it comes out. So yeah, it looks really interesting and really good, and I'm such a fan of that franchise. That's one to look out for. It's coming out on Steam for PC, and I think it's also going to be on the Epic Game Store. It's also coming out on Xbox in early access and is going to be on Game Pass, apparently. So if you've got a Game Pass subscription, you should be able to pick it up there. That sounds like it's going to be quite good fun. So that's all the stuff we've been doing this week. Let's move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with the renewals, cancellations and pickups. Only one sort of real cancellation this week, which is a show which hasn't actually aired over here. It's called Parish. It was starring Giancarlo Esposito. It was an adaptation of a 2014 series called The Driver, which was from Danny Brocklehurst and starred David Morrissey. The US version apparently was from Danny Brocklehurst as well. It's Danny Brocklehurst, the guy that does all the Holland Coben things for Netflix. You know, things like Stay Close and, you know what I mean?
I think so, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a fantastic writer. Giancarlo Esposito obviously is amazing because he's Giancarlo Esposito. Mm-hmm. But it was called Parish. But I think it just didn't get the numbers they needed. So yeah,
I don't think I've heard of it, which is
I mean, exactly. Yeah, that's so it's a shame. I mean, it just seemed to sink without trace, which is a shame. It's not so much one thing being cancelled, but there is a lot of stuff going on with BBC News as well at the moment. And they have cancelled, most notably, the tech show Click and the interview show Hard Talk, which has been running since 1997. They've also cut the Asian Network news. Apparently, the Asian Network is now going to get its news, rather than being a separate thing, it's going to get its news from Radio 1. They're basically trying to save 700 million a year is to aim for the BBC. And all the cuts that they're doing around the news department is apparently supposed to save 24 million. So, yeah, there's a lot of things going on.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money. Yeah, it's because they've not been allowed to raise the license fee, basically. You know, they've got to try and cut back somewhere. So,
well, the TV license is a different issue.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's some changes going on with BBC News at the moment, but there have been various things cut there. Over on the renewals, though, it's been quite good for renewals this week. We have Apple renewing a couple of shows. First one being Slow Horses, which just concluded its 4th season. The 5th season, which was based on the book London Rules, that's already been filmed. Apple has announced the BAFTA award-winning show will be back for a 6th season. That's going to be based on 2 books, actually, Joe Country and Slough House, which are the 6th and 7th novels in that series. There are at least 2 more books after this, plus some novellas, although I don't know what they've used out of the novellas already, but they're sort of spread throughout the run of the books. But yeah, there are at least 2 more after this, so hopefully they'll get to at least the end of the run of the books. But yeah, interesting they're basing season 6 on 2 books rather than just 1, because I think all the others have been on 1 book. But yeah, so I don't know what the reasoning is for that, but yeah, it will be back for season 6 after season 5, which is due out next year. So that's good news. Apple have renewed the hit comedy Shrinking for a 3rd season as well, which I think it's only just returned for its 2nd season, but they've announced a 3rd season.
It did, yeah. I think it was on Wednesday. I've forgotten to watch the episode though. So
yes, I haven't started that yet. That's Jason Segel and Harrison Ford, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's been going down incredibly well, and they've renewed that for a 3rd season. Adult Swim have renewed Rick and Morty for another 2 seasons. Now, we're on like season 7, I think, is the next season to come up. It was already renewed up to season 10 because if you remember, in 2018, they ordered 70 episodes.
I remember that, yeah.
So they've now ordered 2 more seasons, which guarantees it up to season 12 and 2029. So, yeah, it's going to be around for a bit, to Rick and Morty. They got through the slight hump of having to change the voice cast and did that really well. The last season, I think, you barely noticeable that they'd changed the lead actors. I'm all for more Rick and Morty. I think it's fun and enjoyable, and yeah, I'm
See, I've fallen really far behind on it, not necessarily because, I don't know, Solar Opposites came along as well and ended up being a better show.
Yes.
And then that sort of, I don't know if I need 2 of those sort of things. I know that they both do different things, and there's more actual storytelling in Solar Opposites than there is in Rick and Morty, because that's more just kind of fun week to week, whatever. Yeah. Every time I go and look at it on like Netflix or wherever it pops up sometimes, and I find out about a season or 2 behind, I'm like, I don't know if I'll kind of go through those episodes. I don't know. So yeah. I mean, I'm behind on Solar Opposites as well, but not quite so badly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think with Solar Opposites, there is a definite narrative that runs through it. Whereas with Rick and Morty, it is somewhat like the writers have just dropped acid and written an episode in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, in Solar Opposites, there's arguably 2, because there's the wall thing and there's the actual characters. I
mean, there is a solid narrative for that. There are bits of Rick and Morty where you're like, what were they smoking when they did this? It is so weird and out there in places, but I still really enjoy both shows. I mean, yeah, Solar Opposites, I think I would agree. I think Solar Opposites is probably a better show, certainly has a stronger narrative line through it, whereas Rick and Morty, there sort of can be sometimes vignettes of things that aren't necessarily connected as you even in one episode, whereas there is a stronger story running straight through Solar Opposites, I think. But even so, I really, really enjoy both of them, so I'm glad that's sticking around for a bit longer. Over on Paramount, they've renewed Star Trek Starfleet Academy for a 2nd season. This is the new show, which hasn't even had its 1st season yet, which, that's surprising that they've already renewed that for a 2nd season, but I'm not complaining. I mean, I'm always happy for more Star Trek. So they've obviously got some confidence in that. They've also announced the brilliant Tatiana Maslany is going to be a recurring special guest star in season 1. I mean, they've already got some great cast in there. You've got Tatiana Maslany, you've got poor Jim Matty in there as well, who is playing, I think, probably one of the big villains that season. It's led by Holly Hunter. You've also got Robert Picardo coming back as the Doctor in that as well. And Tig Nicotero is popping up in there. And Mary Wiseman, who played Tilly, because it's set in that era, Star Trek Discovery era. So I'm quite looking forward to this. I think this could be quite good fun.
Yeah, me too.
You know, good cast. And Tatiana's incredible. I'd watch her in anything. She could turn her hand to anything. I don't know. We don't know what she's playing. We don't know whether she's going to be under heavy makeup.
It's true, yeah. Not necessarily a human character.
Yeah, so. Not necessarily in this, but she is in as guest cast in this. So we'll see with that. But yeah, good news. It was, of course, New York Comic Con this weekend, so there was some other bits of Star Trek news as well. We got a premiere date for Star Trek Section 31, which is the Michelle Yeoh movie. That's coming to Paramount Plus on January 24th next year. So that'll
finally.
Yeah, I mean, you've been talking about that for ages.
Yeah, we wondered kind of if, like, I guess that was still happening and all that. Like I remember a period of time it just went really, really, really quiet.
Yeah.
Because she left, what, in season 3?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I think the show did okay after she'd, like, you noticed that
fine.
she wasn't there, but,
good.
you know, there's other shows that have lost their major stars and kind of gone off a cliff afterwards. But no, really looking forward to seeing her come back and seeing what this is all about. We've been anticipating this for years, I suppose. So
yeah, because I mean, that was the thing. She left after 3 seasons and then won an Oscar and they announced this and then she won an Oscar and you're like, I wonder if that's going to have any effect on them doing Section 31. But no, they shot it. So and she loves the character.
That's a film, right?
Yeah, that is a film. It was originally they were talking about maybe a series and then it turned into film. So yeah, be interested to see that.
Yeah. I would have preferred it to be, it feels like there's some interesting things to flesh out there and time to spend. So I'm a little bit disappointed it's a film, but I'm just glad that it's happening anyway, because there's been cuts at Paramount and all this kind of stuff. So
yes.
Yeah, it's good that we're getting it. Who knows? We might get a second film or who knows what might happen.
Well, yeah, exactly. So we'll see. The other bit of casting news was for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. They've announced Rhys Darby, who you'll know as Steve Bonnet from Our Flag Means Death, and he's been in a number of other things as well. But apparently he's going to guest star in the new season. We don't know what or who as, but Rhys Darby will apparently be in there. So that should be fun, adding him into Star Trek, because he's hilarious and wonderful. And I'm quite looking forward to that. So yes, Our Flag Means Death was probably what most people know him from, I would think, at this point. I love Strange New Worlds. I think it's such a well put together show. Feels so much more like the classic Trek. So, you know, I like it when they bring guest stars. I think that's going to be good.
I just realised that the second season I got to catch up with it, and my Paramount Plus turns off on the 4th. So, yeah. And I don't have anything else to keep it switched on for. So I might try and squeeze it in there. I don't know.
Yes. Try and get that in, because the season is, last season was really good. So we're checking. In terms of other air dates as well, though, Dune Prophecy, which is the prequel series to the Denis Villeneuve Dune movies, that's got a premiere date now and had a trailer go up, but it's going to be 17th of November in the US, and then it'll be Monday the 18th of November in the UK. So that will be going out here on Sky, and it's HBO in the US. Have you seen any of those Dune movies? Because I never got around to watching them. I sort of feel like I probably should.
No, I remember coming on here and saying that, like, I tried to watch the first one twice and I just could not get into it, which is annoying because when I went to try the first one, which was on Netflix, that was when the second one came out.
Right.
And I heard so much praise for it. I was like, okay, watch the first one, then maybe go see the second one on the big screen. I just never could get into it. So
yeah. I don't know what it is about the Dune franchise.
Annoying as well, because like the cast list is really, really amazing. I thought, oh yeah, I'll love to see these people in this type of film, but no, it just didn't click for me. So
yeah, I mean, it sort of slightly puts me off. I don't know exactly why, because this should be the target audience for this sort of thing. And part of it is I'm not biggest fan of Denis Villeneuve, because he did the Blade Runner follow-up thing, and I found that quite old, to be honest. But yeah, so I don't know. I will go and try it. I will go try the films and see. So I don't know. But yeah, the lore never really massively appealed to me. It could be one of those things where I go and watch it and think it's brilliant, but I don't know. So I may go and try it out when I've got some time free. Over on Prime Video, Secret Level, which is their sort of animated thing from the guys that did Love and Robots over on Netflix. It's the same people. They've got this new show called Secret Level, which is an animated series, but it's specifically, rather than just being random animations, specifically animations related to video games. So they've got that coming on the 10th of December, but they've announced the voice cast for it, and the voice cast is ridiculous. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kevin Hart, Keanu Reeves, Tamura Morrison from Book of Boba Fett, Emily Swallow from The Mandalorian, plays the Forge person on that.
Oh, yeah, I remember you talking about, yeah.
Gabriel Luna from Last of Us, Ricky Whittle from American Gods, Patrick Schwarzenegger is in there as well from White Lotus, Merle Dandridge from Last of Us, Claudia Dommett from The Boys, Clive Standen from Vikings. So, yeah, I mean, I wonder if they're doing, I don't think Last of Us was mentioned as a sort of animated thing in this when they announced what shows they were covering, what games they were covering.
That wasn't in the little montage thing.
Yeah, so but it's interesting they've got 2 Last of Us voice actors in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but, you know,
because these are little like 20 to 30 minute animated things, aren't they?
Yes.
So I don't know what you would do with that if it was Last of Us. So, yeah, I know that Concord is weirdly in there, even though you can't play the game anymore.
Yes.
I'm sure you heard all about Concord and stuff. I know God of War's in there. That makes sense to do a little, I don't know, Kratos goes and does something. Yeah. So I can't remember all the other games, but those are the 2 that I remember.
Yes, I mentioned in God of War, actually. There is a TV series, a live action series that they're working on at Prime Video for that. They basically apparently looked at the scripts, went, oh, these scripts are quite good, but fired everybody. And they're starting again.
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me when I read that.
Yeah, I mean, the press release was like, you know, I don't know whether the press release or the quotes from them was like, yeah, the scripts were fairly well received, but they want to go in a different creative direction. So I don't know what happened there, but they fired all the people that are involved and they are starting from scratch, apparently, for that live action series. There were no casting at the moment for it, which is probably a good job. So they're looking for new writers. It is one of those things where you look at it and going, surely the sensible thing to do if you're adapting a video game is do what they did with The Last of Us and keep the person that wrote the video game involved somehow. But yes, apparently they're not doing that. And we'll see what happens with that and whether that ever actually returns. But yes, so
I'd be surprised if it didn't. Maybe they're just, I don't know. It doesn't sound like a Daredevil situation. Remember when Daredevil was like, oh, he doesn't show up till episode 4 and all this, you know?
Yeah, no.
I mean, that made sense.
Yeah, there'd been no criticisms of the script that they actually wrote. They just looked at it and went, oh, we want to go in a different direction. So that may be a good thing. That may be a bad thing. I mean, it might be that the TV show was close to the scripts were like close to the game and they decided they didn't want that, in which case that's going to upset people and that was a bad move. Or it may be that they changed things dramatically from the game and they went, oh, fans are going to hate this. So we don't know. It's just whatever they saw, they said, well, it's quite good, but it's not what we want to do. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. But yes, that's an oddity, that one. Speaking of Daredevil, though, we have got a date for Daredevil Born Again. Finally, March 4th, that is going to be released on Disney Plus. They announced at the weekend, so we have actually got a date for that. I'm very much looking forward to that.
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, ever since the whole Netflix dismantling thingy, and then we've just been piece by piece, we've just been waiting for this all to come back, because then it was like, hey, Daredevil's going to show up in this, then he's going to show up in that, then we're going to do a series, and then it wasn't working out, and then they scrapped it, which was a good thing to do. Yeah. So, and I remember a lot of people kind of, oh, it's going to be on Disney, which means it won't be. That doesn't necessarily mean that, though. Like, you know, Disney's not the cartoon family friendly thing it used to be.
Yeah,
so,
I can't remember whether they've actually released the trailer officially, but there were certainly copies of it floating around that they've been showing various Comic Cons. And if you've seen any of that, don't worry about the lack of violence, because I mean, it maybe not quite up there with the level of violence on the Netflix show, but it's certainly up there from what we saw on the trailer. You know, they're not shying away from smashing people's heads into things and all that sort of stuff. So they're not worried about it having an 18 rating particularly. So
I think Echo did a good job of like, we've got these family-friendly Disney Plus shows like the ones that we've had, and then regardless of what you thought of Echo or whatever, it was a good display of like, okay, no, this is what we're just showing you what we can do on Disney Plus. So that was a good kind of lead into that.
Yeah, definitely. So 4th of March, Daredevil Born Again is going to land.
I still feel so far away.
I know. It's scarily it's not. I mean, we're 3/4 of the way through October already. It's ridiculous. We've also got a date for Invincible. Did you see this trailer? Because
I did. It's pretty funny.
Very, very funny. They released one of those little trailers, which was Mark talking to Cecil in the sort of burger bar booth, and them discussing in a very meta way the break between seasons and the fact that the last season had a mid-season break and everybody hated it. And it's just the way that they're sort of talking around it. It's just, it's very, very funny, that trailer. But Invincible Season 3, 6th of February, Thursday the 6th of February next year, that will be landing. There won't be a mid-season break. They realised how much people really, really hated that mid-season break.
It's different for me because I didn't start it until after that. So I just kind of watched through it. Yeah, watched whenever.
No, that was so frustrating because it was only like 8 episodes as well. And they're only, 25, 30-minute episodes. So it just seemed unnecessary to stick a massive gap in the middle because it was like a 4-month break last season.
Was it 4 months? Oh, wow.
It was. Yeah. It was a ridiculously long break. So they're now dropping it 6th of February on Prime Video. I
love how he says to him, like, hey, there's this like big threat, on the way. Have you been training doing this and that? And he's like, no, I've been doing, stuff.
Yeah. Kind of playing on his phone. Yes.
Yeah. I wonder if they should try to be a bit, not necessarily like Deadpool 4/4 breaking, but a bit, because it works when they do meta stuff. Like I remember the whole, was it when he goes to a convention?
When he goes to a comic book convention and he talks about the laziness of like,
different tricks and stuff. Yeah.
And tricks of doing animation and stuff. Yeah, it's just very funny. It is quite nice when they do those kind of meta in-jokes. I do find that quite entertaining. And they do that in the comics as well, so it's not out of character. But yeah, it's been great, that series. And Invincible's back, 6th of February, if you want to go and check that out for a 3rd season. Over on Netflix, there is a new show called Black Doves from Joe Barton, who is the wonderful, wonderful writer of The Lazarus Project, which Sky cruelly cancelled after a couple of seasons. I'm so upset that they cancelled that show. I still haven't got past that. But this new show stars Keira Knightley and Ben Whishaw. It starts on Thursday, the 5th of December on Netflix, UK and worldwide. It follows Keira Knightley is the lead as Helen, a woman with a secret identity who embarks on a passionate affair. But when her lover falls victim to London's shadowy underworld, Helen's employer sends an old friend called Sam, played by Ben Whishaw, to protect her. Two of them to embark on a high-octane adventure set against a backdrop of diplomatic tension and Christmas. Hence the reason it's being released in December. It's got a sort of Christmassy theme to it, apparently. But it is a spy thriller. So the leads are spies, and it's called Black Doves. That lands on 5th of December. I will watch pretty much anything Joe Barton writes at this point. I think he's a brilliant writer. He's also a lovely guy. I've interviewed him a couple of times. And Keira Knightley and Ben Whishaw in the leads. I think that's a solid cast for it. And the spy thriller sounds quite interesting. So Black Doves, that's called, if you want to go and check that one out. It's going to be worth looking at, I think. You're always after new zombie content, Matt. So Channel 4 has a new zombie show for you. That's coming on the Sunday, the 27th of October, and it's called Generation Z. And it follows a group of savvy teenagers as they take on flesh-eating baby boomers. It's a comic zombie satire from Ben Wheatley. Casts are quite good. It's got Jay Lacurgo from Titans. It's got Robert Lindsay in there from My Family, Sue Johnson from The Royal Family, Anita Dobson from EastEnders and Doctor Who more recently. It's set in a fictional town of Danbury, the kind of place with stark opportunities and not much to do. Grey, unassuming and forgotten. It's the last place you'd expect the apocalypse to begin. But when an army convoy overturns outside a care home, a chemical leak starts to have adverse effects on the residents there. That's the starting point for it. And it is basically a group of teenagers battling these baby boomer zombies, apparently, is the setup for that. Sounds like it could be quite fun. But it's called Generation Z, and it starts on Sunday, the 27th of October. You'll be able to go and check that out. So
yeah, I just looked it up very quickly. There was a trailer for something similarly named. I can't remember the actual name of that one, but there's another zombie, there's a film. It's on Amazon that's coming out. That's got kind of an interesting premise where they didn't quite like fully get into it, but it's done through blood or something like that. See, the thing I want from zombie content is not always just, okay, here's a bunch of zombies, here's a bunch of people, let's see who survives. Is actual different ideas of maybe the zombies run or function differently, or they've got different things with sound or sight or things like that. Like if you look at a walker from Walking Dead, then you look at a clicker, then you look at a runner, all three of them sort of function completely differently. And then you've got, things like Black Summer, where they kind of just relentlessly run and jump through windows and all this other kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily just, just throw more zombies on screen. It's kind of, okay, different ideas and things like that. Then you got things like Train to Busan as well. I'll check both of them out anyway and see how good they are. I remember when you posted this, and it reminded me for some reason there was a zombie show which I can't remember the name of. It was on Netflix. I think it got cancelled after one season, and it was like really, really bad. And I thought for some reason that this was Channel 4 airing that, but this is a different thing. So
yeah, no, it is a zombie satire. I mean, it is a comedy. Right. It's not,
which I don't mind.
Yeah, so it's not going to be serious things. It's probably not going to have that much variation in exactly what the zombies are. But I think the cast is interesting for it, and I don't know, it could be an intriguing idea. So but Sunday the 27th of October, that's landing. That's called Generation, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't mind like zombie comedy stuff. I mean, if you look at something like Shaun of the Dead,
which is fantastic, film. Yes.
Yeah. So
we'll see.
Yeah.
And lastly, The Boys have added a new face to the 5th and final season, only as a guest role, but it's sort of introducing him there for the spin-off series is the idea for this. And it's Stranger Things actor Mason Dye, who played Jason Carver in Stranger Things, who was the captain of Hawkins' high baseball team and was the boyfriend of Chrissy. So he was the one that went after the group when things happened to Chrissy, let's say. He's been in a few other things. He was in Bosch for a number of episodes as well, and he's appeared in Teen Wolf and Goldbergs and Major Crimes and a bunch of other things, just like one-off guest roles and stuff. He's going to be playing a character called Bombsight, who hasn't actually been seen in the series up until this point, but he has been mentioned. He's the sort of third oldest soup in history, was active in the 1950s. So he's likely to be seen in flashback probably in this, but they're setting him up for The Boys Vought Rising, which is the prequel series which stars Aya Cash and Jensen Ackles, which is a twisted murder mystery about the origins of Vought in the 1950s. So it's the early exploits of Soldier Boy and the soup who becomes to be known as Stormfront, but was previously at the time going by the name of Clara Vought. It's mainly those are the leads, but he's sort of outside of those two, he's the third oldest soup. He's Bombsight. So potentially quite a large role in that spin-off show. I mean, he was pretty good in Stranger Things, I would say. He's a good-looking lad. It sort of makes sense to pick him up for this, I think. And also for introducing him in the final season of The Boys for the spin-off, I think makes sense as well.
Yeah, sounds like it makes sense. I actually did forget about that spin-off, but we've heard about it for a bit. So, yeah, hope that works out. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think the spin-off could be quite interesting. We've obviously still got Gen V coming back as well. So there is still going to be boys content around, even though the final season is coming for the main show. There's going to be this Vought Rising and there's going to be Gen V as well.
Isn't there one in Mexico or Spain or something like that as well?
I vaguely remember some talk about that. But
yeah, I can't remember where it's supposed to be set, but it was,
I don't know whether that's
actually, in like a different country or something.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's actually happening or not, whether there was just talk about it. But yeah. So that's The Boys for the final season. That's everything we've got for this week. Just some highlights for next week coming up. So, highlights for next week. Winona Earp Vengeance, which is that one-off special which Sky originally announced for a while back and then at the last minute moved the date, but they've now reset the date. So it is going to be 23rd of October at 9 p.m. on Sky Sci-Fi and Now TV. So Winona Earp Vengeance, you'll be able to catch that on there on the 23rd of October. Star Trek Lower Decks returns for its fifth and sadly final season. I'm so gutted that they're ending that, but Paramount Plus on the 24th of October, that lands. Dr. Odyssey, which is the new Ryan Murphy medical drama set on a boat. It's been going down incredibly well in the US, this show, so I think it's going to be one worth checking out. There appear to be some quite big twists in it, which is interesting. So we're 24th of October for Dr. Odyssey. That is coming to Disney Plus in the UK. Nautilus, which is this Captain Nemo series, which has Yuan from Star Trek Discovery actually in it. I can't remember his name, something Latif his name, but he takes the lead in this as Captain Nemo. It looks like it's a sort of a fun adventure series, but that's coming to Prime Video on the 25th of October. It was a Disney Plus show originally, and then they decided they didn't want it, and they ended up selling it to Prime. So, sold it to various different places, but ended up Prime in the UK. But that's called Nautilus, and that's 25th of October. Before, which is a new supernatural psychological thriller, so it's probably up your street, starring and exec produced by Billy Crystal in a very straight role, as far as I can tell, as opposed to his usual comedy stuff. Apple TV, that's coming. It's called Before, and 25th of October for that. Back over onto Prime Video on the 25th of October, Like a Dragon Yakuza, which is a live-action drama based on the globally popular video game series. So if you're into that video game, or if you're just like your sort of martial arts dramas, I think that will be one to look out for.
There's not a game I particularly pay attention to, but I hope that that's very good, because let's just say that fan base is very, 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 very passionate about that series.
Yeah, I mean, I do hope that is good, because I know exactly what you mean with that. But Like a Dragon Yakuza, that's Prime Video 25th of October if you want to check that out. Last Leg is back for its 31st season. That's on Channel 4 at 10 p.m. on the 25th of October as well. That is the topical comedy show. I love that series. It's amazing. I'm so glad that's back. And you can tell we're into the autumn, because all those shows like that and Graham Norton and all those things are back. Moomin Valley, if you want for the kids, the Sky newer version of that classic Moomins series, that returns to Sky Kids and Sky Showcase. That's on the 26th of October. Generation Z, as mentioned earlier, 27th of October for that on Channel 4. Lioness returns for its second season on Paramount Plus. That's on the 27th of October. That's another Tyler Sheridan show. First season of that was brilliant. It stars Zoe Saldana as a part of this sort of US military program, but the first season I thought was fantastic, and I like most Tyler Sheridan stuff. I mean, the guy is a hit making machine. But Lioness season 2 lands 27th of October on Paramount Plus. Pan Am, which is a very old show and was cancelled after one season, but if you want to go and catch that, it's about the Pan Am airline. It's a drama and sort of about jealousy and espionage and all that sort of stuff. 28th of October, the entire first season of that lands on ITVX, so it's one of their sort of older box sets that they've picked up. And then over on Alibi, there is a show called The Boy That Never Was, which is an Irish drama that lands on Alibi on the 29th of October at 9 p.m. A man becomes convinced that he's seen his son on the streets of Dublin 3 years after he was supposedly killed in a North African earthquake. Colin Morgan is one of the leads in that from Merlin and Humans, and he's got Simon Callow in it as well. So there's quite a good cast for that, I think. But that's on Alibi. That's an Irish drama that they picked up based on a novel. So, yes, there's some good stuff dropping this week. I will be definitely checking out Dr. Odyssey, Lower Decks, obviously, Last Leg. I will have a look at Generation Z, Lioness as well, certainly. Might take a look at Nautilus too. So, yeah, there's some good stuff.
Yeah, I'll be finishing off Sweetpea and Heartstopper. I might check out the Generation Z thing. If nothing else, then for, early. If it's bad, then whatever. But at least for, try it out at least, get some impressions. So,
totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
See how that goes.
Cool. So, definitely getting into new TV right now. So if people want to find more of your stuff, where can they find you?
They can head over to entertainmenttalk.org or podcast platforms of the same name for TV, games, films, main night podcasts. Finally got a win the weekend. We hadn't won for 6 games. We hadn't lost 6 games. We hadn't lost 6 games. We just hadn't won in 6 games, but we finally won. So hopefully we can take that and build some momentum. That's what you can do. What stuff have I done recently? Did gaming talk. We've had a lot of stuff going on there. Still Wakes the Deep review, kind of a shorter one, but I still had some things to say about that game. A bunch of other podcasts I've done as well, some of which I cannot remember right now. But yeah, a bunch of stuff that I've done. Just head over to entertainmenttalk.org, or I guess subscribe to us podcast platforms, and you can have a browse of whatever you want from that. Still doing some stuff on YouTube. I haven't streamed there for a little bit. Oh, Astrobot was the other thing that I reviewed, just because I did that a couple of weeks ago. Wonderful, really, really fun game. For anybody that's got a PS5, if you don't play that game, you're just doing yourself a disservice, because it's just a big, nice celebration of PlayStation's history. So I reviewed that one as well. That was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, YouTube, you can find me over there. Just reminded me because I've done some Astrobot videos on YouTube as well, which is Entertainment Talk Plays. We've got some Walking Dead stuff that we've done and other stuff happening as well. So if you also want to find me on any social medias, it seems like more and more people are gradually moving over to Blue Sky, which we should all just do that, I think.
Yes, Blue Sky and Threads seem to be the place to be these days.
Yeah. But any social media, pretty much eTalk UK or Entertainment Talk, you should find me over there.
Cool. So go and check Matt out on entertainmenttalk.org and those social medias. Daryl, you can find at hollywoodnorthnews.net for all those TV series that you love, which are shot in Canada. For us, you can visit the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see all the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website page. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, Blue Sky at Geektown, Instagram at Geektown UK, TikTok at Geektown UK, and Threads at Geektown UK. That is everything. We shall see you. Actually, no, we won't see you next week because it's Comic-Con this weekend in London. So I'm going to have a very busy 3 days down there. So we will probably skip the show next week. I may put some interview stuff up. It really depends on what I get from MCM, but there will probably not be a regular show next week just because the last thing I want to do is record a podcast after 3 days at MCM. So something may go up next week, but if not, we'll see you the week after. Goodbye.
Goodbye.